in New York, Boston. I got a little situation with American 11, American 11. He is a 767 departed Boston going to LAX. We don't know where the aircraft is going. He is supposedly going to LAX. Was going westbound. We lost his frequency. Then we lost his transponder, and now the aircraft is just west of Albany, heading due south.
American Airlines emergency line, please state your emergency.
I am monitoring a call in which Flight 11, the flight attendant is advising our reps that the pilot, everyone's been stabbed. They can't get into the cockpit, is what I'm hearing.
American 11, are you trying to call?
Nobody move. Everything will be okay. If you try to make any move, you'll danger yourself and the airplane. Just stay quiet.
There might be somebody in the cockpit right now. Can you get over? Okay, no, right now. We don't say we have to okay. Yeah, we're already doing it. Okay.
This is the ACI. Say again, if you lost track of the aircraft, over? I could have lost track. I don't think this is
I'm going to call from Washington County. I have a situation with American 11, possible hijack. American 11, he said the pilot Boston went to LAX. Right now he's out of Albany. Let the scramble some fighters to go kill him.
A lot of smoke and roll in the minute.
Out of the top of the World Trade Center building, the major
Okay, we just lost connection.
lost the connection.
Yeah. Something's going with the airplane? What's going on, Betty? Betty, talk to me. Betty, are you there? Betty? What, do you think we lost her? Okay, so we'll stay open. I think we might have lost her.
Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. The victims were in airplanes or in their offices, secretaries, businessmen and women, military and federal workers, moms and dads, friends and neighbors. Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of terror. The pictures of airplanes flying into buildings, fires burning, huge structures collapsing, have filled us with disbelief, terrible sadness, and a quiet, unyielding anger. These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat. But they have failed. Our country is strong. A great people has been moved to defend a great nation. Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve.
My name's Walt Enneking. I'm a 4-year veteran of the United States Marine Corps, and I served in Iraq from 2005 to 2006, and again for the whole year of 2007. So in 2019, I didn't even know the Ride to Remember existed. I was approached by a friend of mine who wanted me to do some drone video, but once I went out and captured this footage over the course of 2 days, I knew that I'd be coming back and that I wanted to contribute more in some way to the event to help shine a light on it. I started doing film work more heavily. I wanted to take those skill sets and bring them back to the Ride to Remember. For the last 20 years, we've been seeing a spike of veteran suicide, averaging, they say, 22 veterans a day. I feel like events like this remind people that this is still very real for everyone that the war on terror has affected. And I don't think that we spend enough time thinking how to heal those wounds. Part of this is maybe to help bridge that gap between the general public who doesn't have a close tie to this, the veteran community, and the Gold Star community. You know, giving them all a look from each other's side might help us all understand each other and be there for each other better.
My name's Tim Kiefer, Senior Ride Captain with the Indiana Patriot Guard in the Southeast region. A good friend, Doug Graham, he passed away in February of 2014. He was an Army veteran who was, he was a number of years ahead of me in school, but we ran Life Squad together, fire department together. I was a volunteer for 10 years on the fire department here in Batesville. We worked together, we worked second shift, so we ran around together a lot. He saw, and actually I've been able to keep this. This is Lance Corporal Justin D. Sims, April 22nd, 2006, United States Marine. Doug saw something on a news channel website locally that there were potential protesters going to be there. So we met up with a group from Indianapolis that rode down. This is back in the early days of the Patriot Guard. We met up with them, went to Northern Kentucky, and it was just something I couldn't not keep doing. When you go into these homes and you tell their family, you tell their parents that they're not going to be forgotten. It's pretty big words. So I guess I'm fortunate to have the people, I'll call them staff, the other organizers, the participants, the people that helped me follow through on that commitment. So you don't want to back out on your word. It's hard to. It's hard to explain. I've had people ask me why you do what you do. I say, why not? You know, if you didn't serve, which I think only like 2% of the population does, why can't you support the ones that do or did? You know, what's the other 98% do? So I think that's part of why this organization is recognized so highly, because there's not a lot of organizations out there that are doing the things that we do. You know, this event touches more people than we'll ever even ever think about comprehending. And that's, well, I guess that's part of why you keep doing it. You know, you're doing a good thing in the world.
The Ride to Remember is an annual event. This is the 12th year of it, and it's an annual event to remember the 16 fallen soldiers that we've had in our division, which is the Southeast Division of the Indiana Patriot Guard. The Southeast Division represents 1/8 of the state of Indiana, and we've had 16 fallen soldiers since 9/11. Virtually all are KIAs. So the Ride to Remember is an event, and on most all of these, the Patriot Guard has assisted the families in the final service when they were laid to rest. And during that, we've made a commitment that we would never forget the sacrifice that they made and the sacrifice that the family makes every day to have to live with the loss of that family member. So once a year, we do this Ride to Remember. It's a 2-day ride. It's 340 miles. It's 2 long days to make all these stops, and we'll go to every graveside that we can. Some of the services are not actually gravesides. Several of the boys are buried in Arlington. Several are in cemeteries off-site. But we always have a place where we do the service. It might be the local county park, and they'll have a Veterans Memorial there. We may do the service there. We do one service at a private family. They put a memorial on their family farm, and we actually do the service there. And quite a few of them are in just small local cemeteries where the family didn't want their member to go to Arlington. They wanted to keep them close to them. So we'll go to those local cemeteries. So there's a multitude of different places we go to. But it is our way to fulfill our commitment to never forget that we'll come once a year, visit the graveside, visit the family, and perform this 22 to 24 minute service. You know, there's parts of this service that are a little bit painful for family members. There's parts of it a little bit painful for us. The part in my mind of every service that gets you the most is that we perform a roll call. But I tell you, if you have, you can have 100 people standing around, 150 people, when that roll call goes off, it stops every single person immediately. Whatever they're doing, whatever they're thinking, makes a little hair on the back of your neck stand up, and you know it's something that's pretty serious, and it's something that you want to be involved in, and that to me never gets old. But I think part of remembering is that you got to remember a little bit of the pain too. You know, you want to remember the good times, but you know, it reminds you a little bit of the service they probably had when they buried their son. But we're there to remember them, not to forget them, and to honor them. And this is a little bit of a painful part.
Chad Keith is the very first stop. He resided in Batesville at the time he was killed. His parents lived here, graduated from Batesville High School. And the things I remember about Chad is I know he wanted to be president. That was his goal in life, was to be president rather than going to Washington the way he did, to be interned in Arlington. And I guess that's my biggest regret, and I don't know if I can call it a regret, but is not knowing any of these guys. None of us knew any of these guys. We met the families through their invitation to support their loved one, their hero, and them during the worst time of their lives.
Chad he's a good kid. I know everybody says that about their kids, but he had a way of uplifting people. Mm-hmm. His friends, family, anyone he ran across, he had this way of always seeing something good about them, and whatever they were going through, he could turn that and bring the bright spot to them. When he chose to do something, he was into it, and he wanted to give it his best. He was always from, 3 years old or younger. It was all military, Army. From the time he was like this high, he needed the camo clothes and G.I. Joes, and it was just like...
take him with me before the 2 younger ones were born. I would take him in the truck over the road, and couple of those times I had the opportunity to drop in on my brother when he was stationed up at Quantico for whatever reason in the Army. He was just tickled pink because Uncle Mike just thought that was so cool. He'd bring out his gear and
dress him up,
slap his Kevlar on his head and throw some camos, BDUs on him.
Have him step in his boots.
He was just so
got,
proud
like,
to
this
get the pictures taken.
Miniature little guy.
So yeah, he was all about the military.
All about it. Just from a very young age, it wasn't something that we pushed at him or anything like that. That was his. We knew that was going to be his thing, but that kid at a young age, he had a plan, and he always told us about things and that, but I've come across notebooks and stuff where some were from high school and some when he was in the military, various things of his plan, and what he was going to do. And, you know, maybe people think that it's kind of facetious of us to, not facetious isn't the word I want, but whatever, when we talk about where he said that he wanted to be president, he actually had that as a goal. He was going to do this, 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 and this. I'm going to do that. And then when I run across these things, because we'd gone through stuff through the years, but there was stuff that we just packed. We just didn't have the wherewithal to deal with it at that time. And recently we pulled out a thing, and it's like notebooks, and it's not notebooks filled like a diary or stuff. You have to kind of go through, and then you find a letter. You find a letter to his dad. You find a thing he was writing in high school. They had to pick a person that they admired, and he's like, I don't know who to pick. My parents moved me around so much when I was younger, so I didn't have the chance to really find the people that I admired or that would super influence me. He's like, so I guess I have to say my mom. And then he went on to say, why? Because it made me feel really good that he saw that. But running across it and reading it, it's just kind of like, wow, because he listed what he saw as all my strengths. Some of those I didn't see in myself, but now because I saw it that I can't, well, now I can. It's been 18 years, and we've learned how to live around that and start enjoying life again. Because for a while you just couldn't enjoy it. And if you laughed, you felt strange and weird, and you shouldn't be laughing. Or you shouldn't enjoy this, or you shouldn't do anything that you think you want to do because, well, you just shouldn't do that. Because he can't. Live in the moment. Don't give up anything in the moment. And go for what you want for it, no matter what anybody else tells you, no matter how hard it looks. That would be his message. But be nice. He would also say, like, be nice and raise people up with you as you're going along, because that's what he did also. He had a grace about him in that. Like, he had a genuine, I mean, I think that was his grace. That was his gift to all of us. Anybody he met.
Tony Sieg is the second stop. Tony was my first experience with supporting a family, supporting a fallen hero. Tony was killed shortly after Justin Sims in September of '06. His mother, Linda, lost her husband, Ronnie, I think 18 months prior, so she suffered a lot of loss at one time. But her and I have been friends ever since. No, Tony, one of the things I remember from his bio was wearing cowboy boots in the training room, in the gym, or in the locker room at school. He was an artist. He liked to draw. I still remember the C-130 that was commissioned. They commissioned a C-130 to bring him home because he was only 19 years old. And his birthday was upcoming. And his mom said, "You will have my son home before his birthday." So we gathered a group of 10 motorcycles and went to Greater Cincinnati Airport to bring Tony home. And you know how loud a C-130 is. When the engine shut down and they lowered the back door, that's quiet. That's quiet. Third stop is for Zach Salmon. He liked to have fun. He joined the service to hopefully give his son a better life. Noah, his son. Kenneth Booker, K.R. Booker. He's at least a third generation, if not a fourth generation soldier. His dad, Charlie, he's just retired from service a few years back, I believe. He was in the Guard. John Mankey. There were always kids around him. He was handing out candy or toys or whatever it was that he was shipped care packages. Their unit was supposed to win over the hearts of the people. So he figured he could do that through the kids. I could just envision him being a very compassionate person. Robert Montgomery, he was known by his guys for doing the things that he didn't want them to have to do. He wanted to make sure they were taken care of. He went out of his way to take care of his guys. Go to Sellersburg to honor two young men who were not only brothers, but they were twin brothers. Jordan Spears and Nathan Spears. Jordan was in the Marine Corps. I've heard stories from the family since about the connection with twins, and I'm glad we chose to honor both of them. We go to New Albany National Veteran Cemetery, where we actually honor four guys, four young men. Only one is interred there. Carlos Wilcox. He was in the Minnesota National Guard. He wanted to be a doctor. Jonathan Penny. Jonathan was actually awarded the Silver Star. So he volunteered to go on that deployment, I believe, after a short time between another deployment, but he put himself in harm's way to save. He was a medic, and I believe he put himself in line of fire to save others and was awarded the Silver Star. Matthew Deckard, his parents live in Greenville, I believe. His dad and his uncle are both Vietnam veterans. Matthew's interred in Kentucky. Stephen Menemeyer, he is interred, I believe, in Granite City, Illinois. His parents live in the Clarksville, New Albany area. His dad is also a veteran, and I think his grandpa is a veteran. The reason we honor those four there, because we can't go to Granite City, Illinois, we can't go to Kentucky, we can't go to some of the places that these guys are interred, but they have family local, so we want to support that still. James Daniel Faulkner, his nickname Dan the Man. His website is called Our Hometown Hero. Daniel was killed in September of 2004, which is ironic that we got three that were killed within a day apart, all in different years. We go to Brownstown Courthouse Square for Hunter Hogan, HD. Like Hunter, anybody that knows Hunter or has heard of Hunter knows he was a rodeo buck. Hunter had, I believe, 4 full ride scholarships for rodeo. Young Marine Jackie Koenig, his dad Jack was former law enforcement, Army veteran. Jack's mom was living with them at the time. I always called her Grandma, Granny. She said that there was a bird that always showed up at her window, and she said that was Jackie's way of letting her know that everything was okay. Dustin Turpin. Dustin was actually, he was profiled in a book called We Were One, from back in the early days of Fallujah in 2004. I mean, he was a well-respected Marine.
So glad about, oh, I'm so glad about it. It's been another day's journey, and I'm glad, so glad about it. I said now I'm so glad to be right here. I got my legs and I can walk, and I'm glad, so glad about it. Oh, I'm so glad about it. I'm so glad about it. I got my legs and I can walk, and I'm glad, so glad about. I said now I'm so glad just to be right here. Just think if you didn't have them. I got my eyes, Tim, and I can see. What a beautiful sight. And I'm glad, so glad about it. Oh, I'm so glad about it. Hey, I'm so glad about it. I got my eyes and I can see, and I'm glad, so glad about. I said now I'm so glad to be here. Dustin had it. You have it. I've got it. I got love in my heart, and I'm glad, so glad about God. I'm so glad about it. Hey, I'm so glad about. I got love in my heart, and I'm glad, so glad about. Well, now I'm so glad to be right here. Back in the day, I want to thank Steve and the family of the Turpins. I thank Brandon, Dustin. Back in the day, I was real close with these guys. This is as close as I can get to him now. And that's all right, because I still feel the presence of his love, the presence of the joy, and the presence of the respect that he showed me. And I know that Dustin, from hearing all that Tim has read about him, what a man. You go in as a boy, you're there as a boy, and all of a sudden you realize that you're turning into a man. Some of us think we're men when we're at home. We ain't even touched the surface of being a man, huh? But when you go to that military and they begin to work with you and they begin to do things with you, you can see what Dustin decided that he wanted to do. And what did he do? He did everything. Everything. But most of all, he loved and respected and cared about his family, his wife, his baby, everybody. And I want to say this, I believe that if Dustin was here and things hadn't happened within him, you know what he'd have done? He'd have went and got a motorcycle, and he'd have said, somebody, what are you getting ready to do? I hear there's these guys going around called the Patriot Guards, and they ride around to honor fallen military men. And you know where old Dustin would have been, Tim? He'd have had a bike, and he'd have been right in the midst of this, going and respect. Now, it says right there, riding with respect. I say you ride with joy. I say you ride with unity. I say you ride with happiness. You ride with love. And when I'm back there in the back of my Cadillac, all I can do to press down on that gas to keep up with them Patriots. Huh? And I feel so good about being able to be involved in a family that loves each other. Thanks be to God he created love. He judged Dustin from his heart. He judges everybody from their heart. So sometimes what you see on the outside ain't the real story of a man. It's what comes from the inside that bleeds to the outside that causes him to do what he does. Steve, thank you for that day that me and you talked, and you told me you had 2 boys. And I become to know those 2 boys, and I become to love them. And I still think about them all the time. I just got Dustin's letter out the other day, and I read it. And it just touches me so. When this time of the year comes around, you know what I tell God? I will not be sick. I will not be out of town. I have got to be out there at the Bartlesville Cemetery for the Patriot Guard to see all my friends and to go out there and honor and respect someone that deserves it.
After Vernon, we go to our last stop, which is for John Bishop. Gotten to know John through his comrades, through his Marines. I've met a number of them who have, like I said before, maybe off camera, but I mean, they've included me in their circle even though I'm not a Marine. I mean, I've heard a lot of stories about John, and these guys come from all over the country. You know, this year was our 11th year. Colorado was represented, Florida was represented, Tennessee, Alabama, Kentucky, Ohio. He must have been one hell of a man to have his brothers in arms to come for 2 days to remember him and who he was.
So I was a junior Marine. He was my senior Marine. He was actually my squad leader. And as a new Marine, that was probably the best squad leader anybody could ever ask for. He was straight business, but he knew when to have fun and when to joke around, but he was the best machine gunner. At that point, one of the only Marines in our battalion that saw combat. He went to Iraq prior to Afghanistan, so I didn't know this going into him, but he had a different, carried himself very differently than most, because he's been there and he's done that. And Not a lot of our senior guys in our unit, they went to Ramadi, Iraq, and there wasn't much going on in 2009 when they went. So I was very happy that he was my squad leader. We 100% had I had 100% had one of the best machine gun squad leaders. Very knowledgeable. He made me cry a couple times, not gonna lie. There was one night range that we were doing, this is just one specific memory that I remember, and we were using those stupid blanks, and if they don't fit them in the feed tray just right, they're not gonna work. So I was having issues with that, and he basically asked me, he's like, have you named your machine gun yet? And I said, no, I haven't. Like, why would I do that? He's like, you should come up with a name. So 10 minutes later, I came up with a name. I named her Destiny. He's like, now you need to talk to Destiny. Am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah.
Okay. You need to talk to that 240 like she's your bitch. Make love to that 240. So from that time on, I stopped having issues. And the next day, he told me that he reminds me a lot of him as a junior Marine. So Bishop was just full of knowledge. We actually got separated that first deployment. That one hurt really. That one hit home. They wanted me to be with Trucks to be with another Marine. And it was the first time that I was separated from him at deployments. That really hit home when he actually passed away, because I felt guilty for a long time, because that should have been me, because I would have been carrying that gun instead of him. Whew. Everyone hit really hard. We lost 16 my first deployment, 2 my second deployment. The second deployment I weren't very close with. But the first guy we lost was Sergeant Bovia. He was an attachment to us. Wasn't really close to him, met him in California. He was a pretty cool Marine. The next one we lost was Lance Corporal Twig at that point. That was September 2nd. And September 8th we lost Bishop. But I remember they had the memorial at the company fob, and I remember sitting down next to my buddy Cruz September 8th, the morning of, before any of this happened. And I told him, I was like, man, I was friends with Twig, but we weren't that close. We partied in Myrtle Beach together and stuff. This sucks, but I can't imagine what would happen if Bishop passed away. And not knowing, almost the same time that I said that, is when he passed away. He passed away when I was at Twig's memorial service. Once we got done with Twig's memorial service, Captain Akelum at the time, he was our company commander, called us in a school circle around him, said, hey, we just lost another Marine today. Corporal Bishop passed away. All I really remember is, I remember Sergeant Dentling was there. I held him. I just cried I believe I had a panic and anxiety attack. They took my guns away for about 3 days. Because I was so upset and angry and just pissed off, I would have killed everything. So losing him was the hardest thing I've ever done. I remember my buddy Butler, he was another machine gunner, and we held each other for a couple hours. Just can't believe it happened, because if it happened to Bishop, what is the rest of this deployment going to look like? He was the Marine that everybody wanted to be and strive to be. Then we kept losing people, and everyone got a little bit easier. You kind of get numb to it as time goes on. The last one that really affected me was in Sangin. We lost someone, let me get the dates right, January 1st, January 2nd, and January 7th. Those hit really hard because everything was just really close. In between that, amputees as well. We lost Ty January 1st, Tate January 2nd, and then Goose January 7th. I don't want to take anything away from everyone else we lost, but because those were so close, it's just boom, boom, boom. And I was there for the cleanup process of picking up Tate. He got blown to pieces. people you're close with, it really affects you, and it affects you long term. You might not realize it or think it would, but their memory stays with you forever.
You know, Marshall was constant firefights all day, almost every day. I remember one patrol we went on and we got ambushed, I would say probably about 16 times, just trying to do the one route and get back to where we had taken up. What they would do is we would push out and they would ambush us, jump on motorcycles, run off, wait for us to patrol up further, ambush us again. You know, multiple complex ambushes with everything they had, RPGs, RPKs, you know, everything. Yeah, improvised. But their goal was to maim you with as many of the 15-pounders, and they would put some 40-pounders or higher in there. So as people are coming over to try and get you, then this guy gets blown up, then this guy gets blown up, and there's a couple in there meant to actually kill you. So, I mean, I can recall you're walking through there, and you see, you know, leg bones up in trees, pieces of gear all around. The place was just a complete minefield, basically. You get so conditioned, you're there, your friend's dead, you don't cry, you don't take time. I mean, you know, you have the initial, but sometimes your friend's getting killed while you're still getting shot at. You don't have time to stop. You don't have time to think about it. And in the back of my mind, at least, I'm sure the same for a lot of people, you're like, it's okay, we'll stop and think about this and deal with this when we get home. We need to get through now. We need to do this now. There is no time to stop for that. But then you get home and you don't take that time. I guess part of it feels unreal. Part of it's, I don't know how to describe it, but I think because so there's another subconscious part of you when you're doing that learns, hey, this makes it okay, this makes it easy, like, I can deal with it like this. This is no problem. And humans by nature, at least, you'll take the path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance, in the moment, that serotonin, that feel good, that's, don't think about it, we'll put it off, we'll put it off, we'll put it off. But the problem is, the longer you do that, you start compounding that, and it starts relating over into other issues in life. You ruin relationships, you ruin your own life, you know how it goes. And a part of that is because you never decompressed. A part of that is, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and it's something that's taken a lot of years for me to like self-analyze and realize too, because at the time I didn't realize that, and I think that's another part of that. I didn't know, especially being so young, because I think I was still 18, maybe 19 when I got home. I mean, I'm still a kid at that point. I didn't feel like one, but I certainly was, and I barely knew how to do taxes. Actually, I didn't know how to do taxes or anything else, let alone decompress from war, you know? There's no handbook to it, there's no guide, there's nothing. There's figure it out, or don't, and just deal with it. When I got back, that was the end of it. Like, I came back, but who I was died there, so I started a new life instead, I guess is the best way to put it, which is where I am now. And I think that's why I separate the two, because who I was, who that is, that person's still, you know, will forever be there. This is who I am now after.
I think there was multiple events that saved my life. I obviously dealt with a lot internally. But when we got back from that deployment, we actually got to have a huge memorial service for everyone we met at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, or everyone we lost. And I met the bishop's family. So they came, we had dinner that night. So that specific event helped meeting his family. And then the first memorial ride came, and we had a huge turnout. I believe there was like 200 people. So that specific event got me a little bit farther past it. Obviously, Marines were drinking a lot and partying, and that just is a deep, dark hole a lot of us go into that lose people. And then every year, it's been 11 years now, and I haven't missed a single event. And this event itself has saved my life. Seeing Tim and Ed and all the Marines that were there that deployment, seeing the Bishop family. I lost one friend, but I gained 200 new members of my family. So that has saved my life. I also got saved in 2016, so that was a huge turning point. Quit drinking cold turkey for 2 years. But having something else to focus on, having Christian men talk about a map that God has laid out for me, and got me through this process. Now, everything that I've been through especially with everything going on in Afghanistan right now, I'm able to use the drinking, losing Marines, people that deal with drug issues. I can now go back into my experiences in my life and actually help people and pull them out of that hole that I was in. So it's been multiple small events throughout my life that has pretty much saved my life, because I probably wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for a lot of little miniature events that happen.
At least for how I feel of it is, you know, any random person that comes in is automatically family because of the bond that this whole group and the whole meaning behind this trip. I think, you know, we have our celebrations, we have our reunions. These are bonuses, but there is a purpose to this weekend and this ride, and especially a purpose to the memory of John himself, his family. I mean, there's so many. It's a whirlwind of emotions, I guess, but you know, we all know that, we all feel that, and we don't show it so much, but it's certainly a deeper meaning, and there's an overlaying factor of that, of, you know, we're keeping John alive. To be able to share that, I think, in a way, does wonders for everyone too, including the memory of John. Because that's, if we didn't do something like this, you know, those memories would live with us until we die, but what then? But this is writing it in stone. This is celebrating that time we had with him as a character, the sacrifices he made. This, you know, this is a way to honor that. I think that is more important than anything above all. So.